Today we will demonstrate how to perform a patient transfer safely from the chair back to the bed. So anytime you are assisting a patient, be sure that before you enter the room, you are aware of the patient's diagnosis, injuries, and precautions. It's very important to know if the patient has any weight-bearing restrictions, spinal precautions, needs any braces, anything like that. So for the purposes of this transfer, our patient is full weight-bearing. The most important thing to do first is to set up the room. You want the patient's chair to be touching the bed to close the gap as much as possible. You can position the chair on a slight angle to help with that, and you be sure the chair is locked. Then your patient position becomes the next important. It's very difficult to stand or transfer a patient from the back of the chair. You always want to scoot them to the front of the chair, and if you can, angle their hips to where their behind is already closer to the chair to close the gap of your transfer. For a transfer, you usually want to use a gait belt, and if the patient has any IVs, tubes, drains, you want to make sure that your gait belt is above that so you don't pull them out. For a one-person transfer, you will always stand in the front of the patient. For a two-person assist, you will put your helper in the back in the gap. It's difficult to fit both helpers in the front and not as safe. You want your second helper to be in the back to ensure that you clear the armrest and make it all the way into the bed. So Kelly will demonstrate the squat pivot transfer. If your patient is able to stand and take steps, you can stand them up all the way. If they are not able to step, you will block their knees and help with a pivot, minding your body mechanics. Once the patient is safely seated on the edge of the bed, you want to make sure they are scooted far enough back to prevent slipping. If they have one side that is weaker than the other, you will block the weak side at all times. And then your patient can safely be returned to bed. The transfer is performed the same way to get from bed to chair. Just be mindful that once you make it to the chair, you want to position the patient all the way back in the chair using any safety devices you feel necessary, such as a chair alarm or a torso support.